The galaxy called them Deathworlders, but the Luminar whispered a different name, the Cursed Cure. To the luminous, tentacled healers drifting between the stars, humanity was an unsolved equation, a species forged in the crucible of a planet so vicious, its children drank poison for breakfast and called it coffee. The Luminar recoiled at their stories, wars waged over lines on maps, vaccines brewed from the corpses of plagues, survival etched into their DNA like a threat. Yet when the Silence Plague began devouring the Luminar fleet, melting their bioluminescence into tar and turning their songs into death rattles, they had no choice. They sent a distress signal to the one human even the Void couldn't kill. Far from Council space, in the derelict belly of a station that stank of antiseptic and regret, Dr. Elira Voss stirred neurotoxin into her coffee and waited for the inevitable. They would come. They always did. Not for her expertise, but for her reputation, the virologist who'd turned bioweapons into medicine, who'd survived her own sins. The galaxy saw humans as barbarians. The Luminar would learn the truth. Poison was just a language, and Elira was its sharpest poet, but miracles had costs. The Luminar, with their fragile bodies and pacifist prayers, didn't understand that yet. They would beg for salvation, and she would give it to them, stitched from smallpox and spite. They would call her a hero. Then, a monster. And by the time they realized she was both, it would be too late. Somewhere in the dark, a ship pulsed with dying light. Somewhere in the light, a doctor smiled, her scars silver in the gloom. The cure was coming. So was the curse. Chapter 1. The air in the lab was thick with the acrid tang of antiseptics, and the metallic whisper of failing machinery. Dr. Elira Voss leaned over her workbench, her hands steady despite the tremor in her breath. A single vial of murky liquid glinted under the flickering overhead light, its contents swirling like a storm trapped in glass. Neurotoxin-laced coffee cooled beside her, its bitter aroma cutting through the sterile haze. She called it focus in a cup, though it tasted more like regret. Focus. Penance. Same thing out here. The station, the miasma, groaned around her, a derelict hulk drifting at the edge of the Scutum Centaurus arm. Its corridors echoed with the ghosts of dead engines and older failures. Elira's quarters were no different, cramped, dim, cluttered with datapads and vials labeled in her jagged script. A cracked viewport revealed the void outside, stars smeared into streaks by the station's lazy rotation. She avoided looking at it. The darkness always seemed to press closer here, a reminder of the other void, the one inside her chest where her crew's voices still screamed. She'd been halfway through synthesizing a counteragent for Regilian Lungrot when the alarms blared. Not the shrill, panicked claxons of a hull breach, but the low, pulsing thrum of an incoming vessel, unauthorized, unannounced. Elira's hand hovered over the vial of neurotoxin. Visitors were rare this far into the black, and rare usually meant trouble, or corpses. By the time she reached the docking bay, her boots echoing on rusted grates, the air had turned cloying with the scent of ozone and something floral, alien. The bay's massive doors shuddered open, revealing a ship unlike any she'd seen, sleek and organic, its hull iridescent, pulsing faintly with bioluminescent veins. Luminar. She'd heard of them. Pacifists. Healers. Glowing jellyfish who'd faint if you mentioned rabies. They came in a shimmering procession, their translucent bodies radiating soft cerulean light. Prince Kalon led them, his tentacles trailing luminescent particles like comet dust. His voice, when it came, was a resonant hum in her mind, bypassing ears entirely. You are the one they call Toxin. Not a question. Elira crossed her arms, her thumb brushing the scar on her wrist. A habit. Depends who's asking. The prince's light dimmed, shadows pooling beneath his bell-shaped body. Our people die. A plague. Your methods are unorthodox. But you are our last hope. She almost laughed. Hope was a currency she'd bankrupted years ago. Yet his words coiled around her, dragging memories to the surface. The lab on Proxima 3. her hands trembling as the bioweapons code mutated on the screens, the screams as it breached containment. Focus, breathe. The neurotoxins burned down her throat, grounded her. I don't do charity, she said, turning away. Especially for folks who'd keel over at a whiff of tetanus. We offer payment. Kalon's light flared, projecting a hologram, strands of DNA, glowing and intricate. Our genetic archives. Your radiation scars, they pain you. Elira froze, the ache in her bones, a souvenir from Proxima 3's irradiated ruins, throbbed in agreement. She didn't ask how he knew. The Luminar's reputation for empathy wasn't just myth. You'd trust a Deathworlder to tinker with your biology. Trust is irrelevant. Necessity is absolute. The words hung in the air, heavier than the station's gravity. Elira studied the hologram, her mind already racing through possibilities. Redemption, maybe. A way to silence the screams. Closer. Illuminar fleet was dying. Elira stepped aboard their flagship, the Veil of Dawn, and felt the wrongness immediately. The walls, usually alive with rippling light, were dull, streaked with viscous black tendrils. The air reeked of decay, a sweetness undercut by necrosis. Luminar floated listlessly in the halls, their glow guttering like dying stars. Kalon led her to the quarantine ward. A young Luminar lay spasming, their tentacles cracked and oozing ichor. Elira's gloves hissed as she sealed them, her scanner whirring. The data flooded her visor, rampant cell apoptosis, immune systems cannibalizing themselves. Artificial, engineered. It's a bioweapon, she muttered, more to herself than the prince. Tailored to exploit your biology. Someone stripped your defenses, made you allergic to your own healing. Kalon's light flickered. Can you cure it? She didn't answer. Her mind was already dissecting the problem. The Luminar were too delicate, their medicine too gentle. But Earth's pathogens, crude, vicious things, could brute force a reset, a controlled burn the forest to save it. Back in the miasma's lab, she stared at the smallpox strain, centuries-old freeze-dried, its DNA coiled like a barbed wire. Poison is just medicine with attitude, she whispered, loading the vial into a synthesizer. The machine hissed, blending the virus with Luminar RNA. Kalon watched, his light dim with unease. You mean to infect me? Yes. And if it kills me? Elira met his gaze. Then you'll die faster. The injection was a silent affair. Kalon's bioluminescence flared as the serum spread, a supernova under his skin. Then the convulsions began. He survived. When the seizures subsided, Kalon's tentacles lashed the air, cracking the medbay's floor. His glow had hardened into a corona, sharp and white. He moved faster than Luminar should, than anything should, shattering a diagnostic console with a single strike. The others recoiled. Elira didn't. She noted the data, spiked adrenaline, enhanced musculature, and felt the ghost of a smile. What have you done? A Luminar elder intoned, their voice trembling. Elira ignored them, studying Kalon. How do you feel? Strong, he pulsed, the word vibrating with something feral. Afraid. She nodded. The smallpox had done more than cure, it had upgraded. Outside the viewport, the stars blurred. Somewhere in the dark, Elira knew, consequences were stirring. But for now, there was only the hum of the ship, the prince's newfound strength, and the weight of 100 Luminar eyes, awestruck, horrified. Redemption, she thought, gripping her vial of neurotoxin, or another kind of poison. The coffee had gone cold. She drank it anyway. Chapter 2. The air aboard the miasma had grown thick with desperation, a cloying musk of sweat, antiseptic, and the ozone tang of overloaded circuits. Dr. Elira Voss moved through the labyrinth of her derelict station like a wraith, her boots echoing against corroded metal grates. The walls, once sterile and impersonal, now bore the marks of her new clientele, scorch marks from smugglers' plasma cutters, bioluminescent smears from Luminar refugees, and the occasional bloodstain that even her auto cleaners couldn't scrub away. The station breathed differently now, its vents wheezing under the weight of too many bodies, its shadows alive with whispered pleas in a dozen alien tongues. They come for the poison, she thought, thumbing the scar on her wrist as she entered the lab, and stay for the hope. Her workbench was a tableau of controlled chaos. Vials of Earth's deadliest pathogens lined the shelves, their labels peeling: Yersinia pestis, Bacillus, Anthracis, Clostridium botulinum. To the Luminar, they were sacraments. To Elira they were ghosts. Each strain carried the weight of Proxima 3, the echo of her crew's screams as her bioweapon turned on them. But here, now, they were tools, redemption in a petri dish. She reached for the neurotoxin-laced coffee, its bitter steam stinging her eyes. The first sip was always a reckoning, a sear down her throat that sharpened the world into focus. Focus, not forgiveness. The clinic had begun as a trickle. A few Luminar pilgrims, their glow dimmed by shame, slinking into her docking bay with hushed requests: make me strong, make me survive. But word traveled fast in the fringes. Now her days bled into nights, a ceaseless parade of the broken and the reckless, smugglers with plasma burns, mercenaries addicted to combat stims, Luminar dissidents with their tentacles hacked off by purifier zealots, all of them willing to trade dignity for a vial of her human upgrades. Kalon found her there, hours later, her fingers trembling as she calibrated a rabies-derived serum. His presence was a shift in the air, a cool cerulean glow that softened the lab's harsh angles. He moved differently now, less float, more prowl. The smallpox strain had reshaped him, tautening his gelatinous form into something angular, dangerous. His bioluminescence had hardened from a gentle pulse to a blade's edge. "They're calling you the black market messiah," he pulsed, the words humming in her skull like a struck tuning fork. Elira didn't look up. "Messiahs get crucified. I prefer pharmacist." A beat of silence, then softer. "The purifiers have declared you heretical. They're rallying fleets," she snorted. "Let them. Heretics make better customers." But her hands betrayed her, hovering over the botulism cultures. The purifiers weren't just zealots, they were architects. They'd engineered the original plague. Kalon had learned to purge their species of weakness. Now they saw Elira's serums as a perversion of their grand design, a design that included her extinction. Kalon's light dimmed, shadows pooling at his feet. "You should leave. The council's mercenaries are all ready." "No." The word cut sharper than she intended. She gestured to the refugees crammed in the corridor outside, their faces pressed to the lab's fogged viewport. A Twicketh miner with half her exoskeleton melted off. A Luminar child, her tentacles brittle with radiation sores. "They stay. I stay." He didn't argue. They'd had this dance before. Instead he reached for a syringe of adrenaline serum, rabies RNA spliced with Luminar neurotransmitters. His tentacle trembled. Addiction wears many skins, Elira thought. She'd seen it in the hollow-eyed mercs who traded their last credits for a hit of modified typhoid. Seen it in herself, in the way her fingers itched for the neurotoxin's burn. But Kalon's hunger was different. A prince turned protector, his pacifist soul shackled to a soldier's body. He needed the serum to defend his people, needed it to forget he'd ever been soft. She let him take the syringe. The attack came at the peak of the station's artificial night. Elira was elbow deep in a smuggler's gut wound, her gloves slick with greenish blood, when the alarms shrieked. Not the docking alert. War klaxons. The miasma shuddered as plasma fire scorched its hull. "Council mercs." The smuggler rasped, his compound eyes wide. "They're here for you, Toxin." She sealed his wound with a cauterizer, and stood. The lab screens flickered with external feeds. 3 council gunships, angular and pitiless, docking claws extended. Borders, of course. The council had branded her a bioterrorist, a dealer of genetic contraband. Never mind that their own senators bought her serums in shadow ports. Hypocrisy was a universal currency. Kalon found her in the armory, if it could be called that, a storage closet stacked with defunct mining charges, and a single rusted plasma rifle. His bioluminescence was blinding now, a star-going supernova. Take this, he pulsed, thrusting a vial of serum into her hand. Botulism-based neural enhancer, liquid lightning. She shook her head. Side effects include liquefied organs. Pass. Elira, we fight with what we have. She grabbed a canister of tetanus spores from the shelf, its label smudged but legible. Toxin, tetanus toxoid. Irreversible muscle contractions. Perfect. They met the borders in the central atrium, where the miasma's skeletal remains opened into a cavernous vault. The mercenaries were humanoid, clad in council white, their faces obscured by mirrored visors. They moved with the crisp precision of those who'd never known hunger. Elira didn't wait. She cracked the tetanus canister, releasing a cloud of spores into the ventilation intake. The mercs froze as the filters hissed. You've got 10 seconds before your jaw locks shut, she called, her voice steady. Leave. Now. They opened fire. Chaos erupted. Kalon moved like a storm, his tentacles snapping bones with sickening crunches. Elira ducked behind a support beam, her mind racing. The spores would take minutes to work, too long. She fumbled for the neurotoxin vial at her belt. The emergency dose. Focus, or die. A merc lunged at her. She jammed the vial into his neck. He convulsed, foam bubbling past his visor. The battle blurred. Kalon's roars shook the atrium. Elira's world narrowed to the rhythm of injector hisses, and the coppery stench of blood. When it ended, the floor was littered with twitching bodies, their muscles locked in rigor. Kalon stood amidst the carnage, his glow spattered with crimson, his tentacles coiled like serpents. They'll send more, he pulsed, trembling. Elira nodded, her own hands steady. Then we'll be ready. Later, in the lab's suffocating quiet, she found him hunched over a cracked viewport, staring at the stars. His light flickered, unstable. You're overdosing, she said, tossing him a stabilizer serum. He caught it but didn't inject. Does it ever haunt you? The things we become to survive. She thought of Proxima 3, of the smallpox vial that had saved him. Every damn day. He left without another word. She didn't watch him go. The smuggler's blood still stained her boots. She scrubbed at it absently, her gaze drifting to the vial of radiation antidote hidden in her drawer. Half finished, perpetually deferred. Kalon had diverted its components weeks ago to save Luminar children. She'd cursed him for it, then thanked him. Redemption or poison. The line blurred here. In the dark, she reached for the neurotoxin coffee, drank. Outside, the miasma groaned, its wounds temporary but deepening. Somewhere in the void, purifier fleets gathered, council bounties swelled, and the refugees kept coming, their eyes bright with borrowed strength. Elira Voss, the Deathworlder doctor, the back-alley messiah, returned to her work. The stars, indifferent, bore witness. Chapter 3. The miasma hung in the void like a shattered ribcage, its jagged hull breathing stuttering clouds of coolant into the dark. Elira Voss stood in the station's gutted observatory, her palms pressed against the cracked glass, staring at the nebula beyond, a swirl of crimson and indigo, beautiful and indifferent. Her reflection stared back, gaunt, radiation scars etching silver lightning across her jawline, eyes like smoldering coals. The neurotoxin coffee in her hand had long gone cold, but she drank it anyway. The burn was a ritual now, a grounding sting against the rot creeping into her bones. 3 weeks since the council's attack, the station still reeked of scorched metal and antiseptic, the atrium's floor pockmarked with plasma scars. Refugees huddled in every corridor, their whispers a constant hum. Luminar children traced bioluminescent patterns on the walls to distract from the shriek of repair drones. Mercenaries lingered near the airlocks, trading glances sharper than their blades. Trust was a currency none of them could afford, but they stayed, for her serums, for her myth, for the fragile promise that survival might someday uncurl into something like hope. Elira turned from the viewport, her boots echoing through the empty observatory. The datapad in her pocket weighed heavier each day, scans of her own disintegrating cells, a countdown she refused to name. She'd hidden the worst of it, burying coughs into her sleeve, blaming the station's stale air when her hands shook. The refugees needed a symbol, not a corpse. But Kalon knew. She found him in the armory, his bioluminescence muted to a sullen cobalt. He was dismantling a plasma rifle with the methodical detachment of someone trying to outrun their thoughts. The smallpox upgrades had reshaped him, his once gelatinous form now corded with muscle, tentacles scarred from combat, but his light, it had dimmed, as if the serum's fire was burning him from the inside out. "You're late for your dose," she said, leaning against the doorway. He didn't look up. "I don't need it." "Bullshit." She tossed him a vial of stabilizer serum. It clattered against the table, rolling to a stop near his trembling tentacle. "Your RNA's destabilizing. Another day without this, and you'll liquefy. And you?" His voice buzzed in her skull, frayed at the edges. "How many days do you have left?" The question hung between them, sharp as a scalpel. Elira's thumb found the scar on her wrist, the one that matched the fissures in the viewport. "Enough." He finally met her gaze, his light flickering. "The children, their radiation sickness. I used your antidote reserves to." "I know." She'd discovered the empty vials days ago, tucked beneath a stack of supply manifests. Hadn't blamed him. Would have done the same. Silence pooled in the armory's corners, thick and suffocating. Kalon's tentacle curled around the stabilizer vial, but he didn't inject it. "The purifiers are coming. They've taken the Luminar colonies in the Argoth belt." Elira's jaw tightened. The purifiers' broadcasts had been bleeding through the comms for weeks, footage of cleansed Luminar, their bioluminescence leached to a sterile white, their tentacles severed and regrown into blades. A crusade against impurity, against her. "Let them come," she said, turning to leave. "They'll find I'm not easy to scrub." "Nos." The ambush came at dawn. Elira was elbow deep in a smuggler's chest cavity, repairing a ruptured secondary heart, when the lights died. The miasma's groan shifted pitch, a shudder rippling through its bones like the station itself was gasping. Emergency luminescence bathed the medbay in blood red. "Toxin." The smuggler seized her wrist, his antenna twitching. "They're here, in the vents." She yanked free, grabbing a bone saw. "Who?" The answer came as the medbay doors hissed open, not with a rush of air, but with a silence so profound it ached. Figures drifted in, their forms glowing a hateful antiseptic white. Purifiers. Their tentacles ended in serrated bone spikes, their bioluminescence so bright it seared after images into Elira's retinas. "No," she thought, cold fury rising. "They don't get to take this place. Not my graveyard." The lead purifier pulsed, its voice a scalpel to Kalon's resonant hum. "You will cease your defilement, Deathworlder. Your poisons end here." Elira smiled, tightening her grip on the bone saw. "Funny, I was about to say the same." She lunged, but the purifier moved faster, a whip crack of light, and the saw clattered to the floor, her hand numb. They swarmed her, their touch burning cold, and the world dissolved into white. She woke in a coffin. No, a chamber. Smooth, organic walls pulsed around her, their rhythm syncopated with her heartbeat. The air stank of iodine and regret. Purifier tech. They'd taken her to one of their bioships, a living nightmare of calcified coral and neural webbing. Her arms were bound by sinewy tendrils that leached warmth from her skin. The purifier leader loomed above, its light so intense Elira had to squint. "You will serve purity, modify your serums, weaponize them. We will purge the weak, and you will live." She spat blood onto the floor. "Hard pass. You are dying. We offer life." "Life," she laughed, raw and broken. "You turned your own people into scalpels. Don't talk to me about life." The tendrils tightened, crushing her ribs. The purifier's light flared. "You are a paradox. You hate yourself, yet fight to live. Why?" Elira's mind flashed to the miasma's refugees, the Luminar child who'd offered her a bioluminescent flower, grown from station mold, the Twicketh merc, who'd defended her lab with his last breath, to Kalon, who'd traded his soul for strength, and still believed hers was worth saving. Because they don't hate me, she whispered. The purifier recoiled as if struck. Then you will die defiant, and we will harvest your poisons from your corpse. They left her in the dark. Elira sagged against the tendrils, her breath ragged. The radiation scars on her skin throbbed, a constellation of failures. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, prayed, not to any god, but to the void itself. Let him stay away. Let him live. But Kalon had never been good at taking orders. The rescue was a symphony of violence. Elira heard it first, the distant shriek of tearing flesh, the wet crunch of bone. The bioship shuddered, its walls bleeding amber ichor. When the chamber doors exploded inward, Kalon stood silhouetted in the ruin, his bioluminescence a supernova. He'd injected every serum at once, she realized. Rabies adrenaline, botulism neuroenhancers, smallpox rage. His tentacles were barbed, his form barely recognizable. You came, she rasped as he severed her bonds. You knew I would. His voice was a guttural scrape, words fraying into static. They fought through the bioship's arteries, Kalon carving a path with feral precision, Elira scavenging purifier toxins from shattered incubation pods. The air thickened with spores and screams. She didn't look at the cells they passed, rows of luminar, their light stripped, eyes hollow. At the airlock, Kalon stumbled. His light was guttering, black veins spider webbing across his body. Overdose. System collapse. Stay with me, Elira growled, jamming a stabilizer into his tentacle. Go, he pulsed, shoving her toward the escape pod. I'll hold them. She refused, hauled him into the pod, her arms screaming under his weight. As the bioship's tendrils lashed toward them, she slammed the eject button. The pod tore free, Kalon's roar echoing through the comms, until the explosion silenced it. Ning! Back on the miasma, in the lab's suffocating quiet, Elira faced the truth. Kalon lay on the medbay slab, his light reduced to embers. The serums had hollowed him, left his body a cracked vessel. She scanned him, the datapad's glow harsh in the dimness. You knew he pulsed, weak but unyielding. About the antidote, the children. She didn't look up. Yes, and you let me. They needed it more. Her voice broke. I'm just one person, not to them. His tentacle brushed her scarred wrist. Not to me. The admission hung between them, fragile as a soap bubble. Elira's hands trembled as she input the final calculations into the datapad. A hybrid pathogen, stitched from the purifier's toxins, and her own DNA. A universal cure, a suicide pact. I can fix this, she said, more to herself than him. But I need to test it, on myself. Kalon's light flared. No, it's the only way. My radiation scars, they've made me a walking petri dish. If the pathogen works in me, it'll work in anyone. If it kills you, then you'll find another way. She loaded the syringe, the liquid inside iridescent. Beautiful. That's what survivors do. He tried to rise, failed. Elira, don't. She hesitated, the syringe poised above her vein. For a moment, she let herself imagine another life. A quiet lab, a body unbroken, a universe where poison stayed in vials, and guilt could be washed away. Then she plunged the needle in. Agony, glory, the world dissolved into light. When consciousness returned, the lab was silent. Kalon slept, his bioluminescence steadier. Elira's veins throbbed with fire, her skin slick with fever. The datapad's readings scrolled, pathogen bonding, cellular regeneration, 52% success. Not enough. Not yet. She staggered to the viewport, the stars blurring. Somewhere out there, the purifiers were regrouping. The council's fleets were closing in, and her body, Her body was a battleground, redemption or poison. The line had vanished. Elira Voss, the Deathworlder doctor, the walking dead, opened a comm channel to the entire galaxy. "Attention, assholes," she rasped, blood speckling her lips. "You want a cure? Come and get it." She triggered the station's emergency beacon, its pulse screaming across the void. Let them come. Chapter 4. The stars wept fire as the fleets descended. Dr. Elira Voss stood in the miasma's shattered observatory. Her reflection splintered across the cracked viewport, a mosaic of scars, sweat and defiance. The hybrid pathogen writhed in her veins, a living thing gnawing at the edges of her bones. Every breath tasted of copper and decay, but her hands, steady as ever, adjusted the broadcast array. The station's comms screeched with incoming threats, purifier diatribes, council demands for surrender, the static-laced prayers of Luminar refugees. She silenced them all. The galaxy would hear one voice tonight, hers. "Attention, vultures." Her transmission bled across every frequency, raw and unfiltered. "You want a cure? It's in my blood. Come take it." She cut the feed, the silence afterward, more deafening than war. The neurotoxin coffee in her hand had gone cold, its dregs swirling like sediment at the bottom of a grave. She drank it anyway. The burn was a relic now, a ghost of the woman she'd been. The first ships pierced the nebula's edge at midnight. Elira watched from the medbay, her body tethered to a web of monitors that charted her ruin. The purifier bioships oozed into view first, their coral hulls weeping acidic mucus. Council cruisers followed, angular and sterile, their ion cannons charging with the hum of bureaucratic inevitability. Between them drifted luminar skiffs, their bioluminescence flickering like candle flames in a storm. All here for a piece of the corpse, she thought, her lips cracking into a smile. Kalon found her there, his light a dull ember, his once mighty tentacles atrophied. The serums had hollowed him, but his eyes, those damned luminous eyes, still burned. The pathogen, he pulsed, the resonance weaker, humanized by frailty. "Working," she lied. The datapad beside her scrolled endless red. "Organ failure imminent. Neural degradation 73%. But the cure's code was stitching itself into her DNA. Slower than death, faster than hope. He didn't believe her. She saw it in the way his light dimmed, in the tremor of his tentacle as he brushed her wrist. "The purifiers will board. The council will bombard. There's no scenario where this ends well. Since when do we care about well?" She injected another stimulant, the needle biting deep. "We're here for enough." The battle began as all battles do. With a scream of metal, purifier boarders breached the miasma's starboard hull, their bone-spiked tentacles carving through bulkheads. Council drones swarmed the port side, their plasma cutters hissing. Elira moved through the chaos like a revenant, her medkit stocked with bioweapons masquerading as cures. A purifier lunged. She jammed a syringe of modified rabies into its gelatinous flesh. It convulsed, its light curdling to black. One down, 1,000 to go. She retreated to the lab, her sanctuary defiled by smoke and static. The pathogen's progress glowed on her screens. 89% bonded. Not enough. Never enough. Kalon's voice crackled through the comms. "They've taken the reactor. Detonation in 10 minutes. Of course, the council would rather erase the miasma than let her cure spread." She leaned against the lab table, her vision blurring. The datapad's numbers taunted her. 91%, 92%, faster. The purifiers found her. The purifiers found her. As the station shook, their leader filled the doorway, its bioluminescence a blinding white, tentacles coiled like scorpion tails. "Your defiance ends, Deathworlder. We will harvest your poison, purify it." Elira laughed, blood flecking her lips. "You don't get it. The poison is the purification." She slammed her palm on the lab's emergency vent. Tetanus spores billowed into the room, a glittering haze. The purifiers froze, their honed biology, a liability as the spores infiltrated their systems. They collapsed, muscles seizing, light snuffing out. Elira staggered past them, clutching the final vial, a concentrate of her blood, shimmering with fractal patterns, 99% bonded. The reactor core was a cathedral of annihilation. Kalon waited amid the overload conduits, his tentacles wrapped around the detonation console. Council drones lay sparking at his feet, their circuits fried. Pathogen, ready. She tossed him the vial. He caught it, his light flaring in understanding. The cure, it reverses everything, even the upgrades. She nodded, including yours. For a moment grief flickered across his bioluminescence, then resolve. He loaded the vial into the station's dispersal array, targeting the fleet. Do it, she said. The miasma screamed as the array fired, her blood atomized into a golden mist. It kissed the purified bioships first, their coral hulls dissolving into pollen. The council cruisers followed, their sterile crews gasping as the cure purged their augmentations. Luminar skiffs drank the mist, their brittle tentacles softening, their light warming from white to cerulean. Elira collapsed against the console, her body unraveling. Kalon knelt beside her, his tentacles fraying, his strength ebbing. The galaxy will remember this, he pulsed. No, she gripped his trembling limb. They'll remember you. The detonation countdown hit 0. Miasmas. She woke to sunlight, real sunlight. The miasma's medbay was bathed in it, the viewport repaired, the air clean. Elira's hands rose to her face. Her radiation scars remained, silver rivers etched into skin. A monument. Kalon stood at the foot of her bed, his bioluminescence gentle again, his form softened. The upgrades were gone. The cure reset everything. He pulsed. Even you. She sat up, her body aching but whole. The fleet's purifiers shattered. Council retreated. The Luminar. They're calling it the rebirth. Outside, the miasma hummed with new life. Luminar children darted through the corridors, their laughter echoing. Smugglers and mercenaries worked alongside them, scrubbing plasma scars from the walls. And you? She asked. He hesitated. My people need a leader, not a soldier. She nodded. No goodbyes, none needed. Years later, the station thrived, a crossroads of species, a haven where poison and cure danced in delicate balance. Elira Voss remained in her lab, her scars a map of sins and salvation. The neurotoxin coffee still steamed on her desk, its bite undiminished. A young Luminar entered, their tentacles quivering. They say you can upgrade. She sipped her coffee, the old smirk tugging her lips. Side effects include humility, perspective, and occasional existential dread. Still interested? The Luminar hesitated, then nodded. Elira reached for a vial. Somewhere beyond the viewport, stars burned, indifferent. Redemption, she thought, is a work in progress. The legend, however, was already written.